You ever do the 2-bowl thing?
2-bowl?
Get 2 bowls, put the garlic inside, and go like that until all the garlic's peeled.
Oh. Does that work?
Yeah.
Is that more grandma powers? Welcome to Funhaus, everybody. My name is Daniel. I've got my buds Lawrence and Omar with me this week.
God, I'm amped.
Yes, we are amped because we saw Hobbs and Shaw earlier this week.
Still feeling it.
Yeah, it
Right
is
on.
a thrill ride for sure.
Also the drugs, but mostly Hobbs and Shaw.
So Hobbs and Shaw is what summer blockbuster season is all about. It's nonstop, over-the-top, physics-defying, adrenaline-fueled action scenes. It is dumb and corny, but self-aware enough to be able to have fun and not drown in its own self-serious grittiness. It has the barest threads of a plot that weave together these massive action set pieces into one slick thrill ride. It's kind of a throwback to the good time 90s action movies with plenty of comedy that don't take themselves seriously. I had a blast with the mindless, dumb, but extremely entertaining movie. I can't call it good, but it sure is a hell of a lot of fun. What did you guys think of Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw?
I'm going to go, I think it's good.
Yeah?
It's not profound. It may not be art, but it's well made. I think it states its intentions pretty early on. It says this is the kind of movie you're in for, and it delivers on all of those promises. A little over delivers, actually. So
Yeah, I'd say so. It gets a little long.
You think?
Yeah. And it's over delivery. You shaking your head? You don't think 2 hours and 20 minutes is too long for an action movie, Omar?
No, not the way that movie played out.
Yeah.
Going into it, maybe I would have thought that. I'm going to upgrade Lawrence from good to pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
What is fucking awesome?
It was rad. And every time that you thought like it was plateauing for the rest of the movie, it dialed it back up.
That's true.
It found the thing that was the dumbest about whatever situation the scene was about and turned that knob all the way up.
Turned the dumb knob all the way
Yeah,
to the
just
top.
every time you were like, that it can't get any more. It can't be any more than what it is right now. And then it was, nope, it's way more than it is right now. It was amazing.
Well, I'm actually super happy that we enjoyed this movie. Just because Fast and Furious, it's a really strange franchise, and it could have been awful, but it was just, like I said, summer blockbuster fun. You kind of know what you're getting. Like, you're not going to get a super smart film, but you're going to get a hell of a thrill ride. Just in case you don't know the plot at all, Fast and the Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw stars are 2 of our baddest and baldest action stars. The Rock is federal agent Luke Hobbs, and Jason Statham is reformed bad guy Deckard Shaw. They're up against a techno cult called Etion, I believe is what it is.
Etion.
They want to kill the weakest of the human race with a programmable virus so that we can evolve and save the planet from overpopulation. A British agent steals the virus and is on the run from governments, the technocult, and our hairless heroes. Hobbs and Shaw are opposites, and they loathe each other. But can they put aside their differences and come together to stop the virus and save the world?
I think the premise alone is like, you've accurately nailed it. And I feel like at this point, your reaction is going to dictate whether or not you're in. If you have the capacity to listen to that and be like, awesome, then this movie is for you. If you listen to that and be like, dumb, like I'm not a teenager anymore, then that's fine, not for you. But
Maybe still for you.
maybe still, maybe still.
I mean, if you like fun in your movies, I think this is for you, honestly.
It has been a long, you mentioned it was like, it's a kind of a 90s throwback in a way, and I think you're very much right. It's been a long time since I did feel that kind of summer dumb fun, and I think to put the most finest point on it, in the credits, there is a song with record scratching and rock music and samples from the movie worked into the song.
The music is atrocious in this film.
Atrociously amazing.
Idris Elba made the music.
All of it?
I don't know about all of it, but
He
that
was in
one,
those
the song
credits.
that Lawrence is referencing.
Yeah, he dropped vocal samples from the track.
he was the guy. He was the DJ or whatever
Well,
that put it
there were
together.
like little bits about like being good to one another and stuff like that.
Oh, that
being,
was the
being
like
positive.
That was the rock reggae song that preceded it. Which also, if you want to be more late '90s, wrap around again. Here we are. Oh, fantastic.
So there was it's an action movie, and I think there's enough vehicle action to make this Fast and the Furious adjacent. Like, it makes sense.
They're broadening it out. There are no street races at all.
It's far from the street race.
I mean, they did
world.
Clunk,
clunk, clunk. They did that like 1,000 times.
Sure.
So that's all they need for a Fast and Furious movie.
And there's some Nas at the end.
Yes, there is even like specifically there are some cheeky references. There is the CG flying into the engine, showing Nos firing through all the tubes and out the exhaust. Like it does dip back to that some little like classic Fast and Furious nods, but I think in terms of the scope of what you would expect from these movies, this is intentionally broadening it quite a bit.
Sure. And so we are going to stay a little spoiler-free maybe for the first few minutes here. Like usual, it's more exciting when you can talk about the movie freely without worrying about spoiling it. But we can do a few more minutes maybe without ruining anything from the movie. And talking about it a little more broadly. And I would say this movie has the series. This is the 9th Fast and the Furious movie, I think.
Yeah. They've all been in canon so far, and in numbered, canon. So, yeah. Well, yeah, with the canon that they eventually retconned and stuff. But yeah, this is the 9th, but not Fast and Furious 9.
I'd say it's come quite a long way from the Point Break ripoff that was Fast and the Furious originally.
Yeah, the Fast and the Furious.
Which is good. It's like, that was 20 years ago.
Shut up. No way.
I think it was 01. I think is when it came out. We're getting there. I think 18 years, but yeah.
But it's good that a series can evolve. It probably has to who have done this.
Oh my God.
Well, so yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because, and Omar mentioned escalation. To me, the Fast and the Furious series over the course of the 18 years has been a fascinating case study in escalation, both in like stakes and action and set pieces and in basically every way. The breadth of the cast, everything. So this movie in a microcosm is a wonderful case study of escalation over the course of the movie. But also, like you said, there were even self-aware call-outs. I think it was in 7, where they were like, you started stealing DVD players and now here you are trying to take down an international terrorist cabal.
Yeah, saving the world multiple times.
Yeah, and that's very literally true. In a lot of ways, the Fast and the Furious, it was just about like some street racing shitheads in LA that were stealing DVD players. And here we are.
Yeah, in that first movie, were they ever the good guy?
No, it was more like,
I mean, they had like a code of honor or
right, but they were never like the shift didn't happen until
it was more that they had a code of honor and there was a bad guy that didn't have the code of honor. So Paul Walker infiltrated to like take down the whole gang, and then he learned that there were noble gang members and bad gang members, and then he kind of like in a very Point Break kind of way caught onto the lifestyle, got into the culture, found out there was nobility in these street thugs, but there was an even badder bad guy that had to get taken down. So yeah, that's kind of the trappings of it, and still a lot of those beats are withheld in the way that they'll convert bad guys into good guys, and in a very wrestling sort of way, they'll do a ton of heel turns and face turns and things like that.
This one introduces a little bit of. I keep giggling like looking at it.
No, it's great.
So much I was kind of giggling to myself all night long while trying to fall asleep after watching. There's just so much wonderful silliness in this movie, but this one starts to be a little sci-fi-y. I don't remember that being much in any of the Fast and Furious movies I've seen. I haven't seen them all, but we get some super soldiers, the techno cult or whatever, programmable super viruses.
Yep.
It's getting a little out there, but it's still grounded in some way, I guess.
I mean, the last ones had like the kind of over the top techno stuff in it.
Yeah, there was Cypher.
Oh yeah,
the shadowy. Charlize Theron's character, and they had like a USB stick that could hack all satellites and stuff. So
yeah.
I would say until now it's been like Bond level ridiculous. This is getting into superhero ridiculous territory.
It does seem superhero-y, especially with Idris Elba, who I think is excellent in the movie.
Absolutely.
He's been in some trash. He's been in some good movies, but he's menacing, threatening, and all around great, I think. He's a good bad guy for anyone that needs a big heavy.
100%. He's a great taciturn dad character.
Yeah, he's got the like doesn't give a shit kind of like facial stuff down.
Yeah. Terminator vibes.
Yeah, just like just whatever, man. I'm gonna be the menacing man.
And cool.
Yeah,
I don't know, he's kind of always like oozing this cool.
Yeah, he's got a.
Oh my God, there's so much of the movie in this trailer.
I remember watching the trailer and just feeling exhausted watching a 3-minute trailer.
Yeah, and the good thing is like there's still surprises that the trailer doesn't expose.
Hell yeah.
The trailer certainly hints at a lot of those sequences, but there are dashes of flavor that you will get by watching the film that aren't just completely spelled out in the trailer, which is appreciated.
I see it almost cartoon-like. This movie, because like physics don't matter. You know, you can get The Rock will get a bottle shattered on his head, and there's no glass or even blood. Which I don't know. The over the topness is something that I love.
I wouldn't say it's like
flick.
it's not like quite Kung Fu Hustle territory, which is almost literally Looney Tunes sometimes, but it is certainly that sort of childhood gleeful play with destruction, and it is very much straight out of the mind of a 13-year-old boy of like what strong big men can do when they fight each other and stuff like that. So this is not trying to be like maybe like Winter Soldier, which is like it's super heroism and super strong people, but with a dash of realism about the physics. No, this is full on. This is full on ridiculous.
The Rock just jumps out of a window.
Yeah, there was
instead of taking the conveniently placed elevator.
Yeah, there they're hard and loose with the rules. There are times where people like, fall 40 feet, land on their feet fine.
Yeah.
There are tossing around 250-pound people like they're just like sacks of flour. It happens, but I think it all lands pretty well in terms of it obeys its own rules, even if it establishes those rules as separate from our reality, which is I think the big thing.
So I thought the villainous plot, where they're trying to use this programmable virus to take out the weakest of the humans to evolve humanity.
The eugenics angle,
I think it's interesting because it's one of those, bad guy has a motivation that's not 100% evil. Like there's a little bit of good in it that he can, you feel like he believes he's justified in doing what he's doing. I don't know. I thought that was a
that's a weird line to walk. I mean, that's the Hitler angle. That's the whole thing. Like the ultimate evils of the world that we've had so far.
But
in his mind, he is trying to save us from our own doom.
Yeah.
That reminds me, there's been a few recent takes that kind of in that flavor that really appealed to me, like Kingsman. It's like you're doing it for the good of the human race, but it's kind of you have to be separated from humanity to appreciate a culling. And also, I get reminded of The World's End a lot, of how like it is sort of a sort of like we don't care if global warming is happening and we're going to eat ourselves out of a planet. That's just humanity, and humanity is what's important. So there is something a little interesting about kind of dissecting villain motivations there. But they also go above and beyond to be like, no, he is robotic, he has no soul, and they state that in a million different ways. So there's no way that the audience is expected to empathize with this villain at all, I don't think.
Not at all.
Certainly not by the end of the film, which is ironic considering one of the lead characters is a villain in the franchise proper.
Sure. They did a little bit of retconning.
Yeah.
Maybe spoiler light, they did a little bit of retconning to make you not hate Dexter Shaw for, what was the name?
Deckard,
excuse me.
The coolest name.
He killed Han in one of the other Fast and the Furious movies.
Well, technically Tokyo Drift, but then it was retconned to be him in 7, I believe, maybe 6.
Yeah, because wasn't he was on their team the last movie too, right?
Yeah. He was compelled to work with them by Mr. Nobody. Because
the names are so
it's only getting better because they were in prison and it was basically like, we'll commute your sentence if you do this one job for us.
I think that must be where people got the idea for this spin-off, looking at their chemistry in that film.
Yeah, and kind of I think Dan, you had mentioned it. There were some tensions on set in the last film.
Yeah, so. I think there's a beef between The Rock and Vin Diesel. And
certainly I think
contest, I'm sure.
Paying 20 different paychecks per movie is getting a little rough. So I think they're trying to trim down the cast a little bit and see what's viable.
So I wasn't sure if the fact that this movie was going to exist was the cause of one of their disagreements or the other way around. That's what I had read
a long time ago. Is like
the fact that this spinoff existed.
Yeah, because The Rock came in late into the game and then was like convinced them to like, because it's his production company and everything too, like made this spin-off movie, stole the franchise from Vin Diesel. That's why they hate each other.
What a move. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Real quick, back to the virus. It's called Snowflake, and it's going to eliminate specific parts of the human race deemed inferior.
Well, it could do whatever they wanted.
Is that being political?
I wondered about that. Like, they didn't choose that name by accident.
No, there's no way.
But there's really no other. There's really nothing else to the film that would reinforce that it's connected to online discourse or the polarizing state of politics. Really, aside from if you really wanted to read into it, that some shitty internet dudes are basically arguing for eugenics in some ways. Yeah, like the Hitler did nothing wrong thing.
Yeah.
But there's not really that much gas to light up in this movie. It's definitely not that deep, unless there's just somebody felt like being really like jamming that stuff in there. But I can't see why.
I just brought that up because I was curious. Naming it Snowflake seemed like it had to have been on purpose, but then it went nowhere. I guess unless you're stretching.
Honestly, didn't even think about it until you just said that.
Okay.
Like it was called Snowflake. Oh, because each one's unique or something. Like I honestly like.
And snowflakes melt. So like,
Oh yeah, like
Sure.
melt your
Oh yeah, it
inside.
melts you from the insides.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. Yeah, I didn't put together the like internet snowflake thing at all.
Oh well. Just curious.
one thing I've been thinking about a lot, and we actually just saw it in our reels here, but.
Should I go back?
Oh no, it's fine. Like the Fast and the Furious, the banner stunt in that movie was the barrel roll, which was awesome and is still awesome. But there is something weird about the later Fast and Furious movies when they become so dense with ridiculous stunt work that even at 2 hour 20 for this film, I still wish they would have taken a little longer to savor some of the stunts that they had.
And there's no time. They move on real quickly.
They move so fast, and that was my complaint about Fate of the Furious as well. There's so much amazing stunt work going on, but they don't give the audience a great amount of time to savor most of it. It's like, that exploded, we're done. We knocked this building over, we're done. So, in contrast to Fate, I think Hobbs and Shaw does spend the time to let you really savor their big set pieces a little more. But I'm still much more of a John Wick like throne room fight kind of guy in Last Jedi. I want long, steady shots because there's so much amazing stunt work in these films, and I do kind of feel like the packed runtime shortchanges it just a tad.
You don't have really time to savor or enjoy any of those little bits. Even
Yeah.
I think some of the action, they've got so much in it. It goes from doing something really interesting to just doing punch, reverse shot, punch, reverse shot, punch to fill the gaps to make sure that you can't savor it. I don't know.
But I will say that on top of some sequences where it is like big meaty mans punching each other real hard, which there is a fair amount of, they do also have some amazingly memorable stunt concepts.
Sure.
So it's like, yeah, you can punch each other and you can make that look cool with great choreography and good camera work, or you can have dudes punching each other on like a moving truck with like. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but they definitely come up with some gimmicks, some visual gimmicks that sell a lot of these stunt sequences more than just punch, punch, punch. And I appreciate that very much.
So a lot's being made of the chemistry between The Rock and Jason Statham, and maybe that's why they made this movie in general. And it confuses me a little bit because there's constant insults and burning each other up. Like that's just a constant throughout the movie. A way to maybe force the chemistry. They're just constantly ripping on each other and talking about how the other's dick is super small and my balls are huge and that kind of stuff. And my question is that chemistry?
I've been talking a lot, Omar. Why don't you take that one?
I mean, I feel like it's manufactured chemistry, like you're saying. I honestly, when I'm watching the movie, like the two of them together in the scenes and stuff, both of them are trying to be leading men, so there's not a ton of chemistry that I see organically growing. They're both like, I am the star of this movie, even though they are both the stars, but like they want to be the singular star of the movie, and it's probably hard, especially with the way The Rock is viewed right now, like one of the highest paid actors in the world, like.
Super
Everything
bankable.
it's super personable, like everybody loves him, like outside of acting, inside acting, whatever. It's got to be like intimidating, right, to be in a movie that you're constantly trying to play against this giant man.
Even when you're Jason Statham,
Yeah,
who's a badass.
Yeah, Jason
right?
Statham is awesome, and he does really well in all these, like the Transporters were awesome, all those movies were awesome, going way back to Snatch. But like he's not The Rock.
True. And I think that might be one of my small beefs with the movie is that you've got this duo, you're selling the movie on this duo, but there's never really like a real moment between them beyond the barbs and the takedowns and the burns. They didn't have a moment where they actually connected. Maybe at the very, very end.
Yeah, at the
when
end.
they stated very directly. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
It's a stunt mechanic that they connect. Yeah, it's almost like Shades of Pacific Rim. It's like we have to sync our minds. That's maybe overstating it a little bit, but yeah.
I don't know. I just at a certain point, I found it slightly tiresome when they constantly had to rip each other and couldn't just stop being an asshole for a second and go save the world. And it took 2 hours and 20 minutes to get to that point.
Yeah, I feel like the movie was designed with that in mind.
It
right?
was scripted. They
Like,
called it out multiple times.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
like you said, with the way the action stuff was piled on top of each other, and way that they're constantly ribbing on each other, like it's basically the same thing over and over again a couple times because that's what they expect the audience's attention span is.
Maybe it's like 15-minute action scene, 5 to 10 minutes of comedy.
Yeah.
To another action set piece.
Also, like I loved this movie, but whoever wrote the script or whatever, they were probably betting on like the lowest common denominator jokes,
Sure.
because that's all they could put together in
Script.
this kind of thing, right? Like they're not going to do some weird high concept comedy because either A, they don't expect people are going to understand it because of the audience of this movie, or they just weren't talented enough to do that. Like I don't know who the scriptwriter was.
It's the
loved
same
this
guy who's
movie.
written a bunch of these movies.
Yeah,
think.
I loved this movie, and I like Fast and Furious the franchise because how dumb it is. I love dumb things like this.
That's a good way to put it.
But yeah, like I think the best you're gonna get is that kind of. We just have to cut each other a couple times, and then we're gonna fight together, and then we're gonna cut each other a couple times.
Yeah.
And
It was very much like 13-year-old grade schoolyard insults, which so The Rock is very used to insulting people on mic. Like, and I think
Sure.
that reads through very, very well.
A lot of things going up people's asses.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
Sideways.
Multiple references to shoving things through Jason Statham's ass, which by the third time I was like, okay. I mean, it starts off pretty creative, I guess, in terms of just trading childhood barbs, I would say. But yeah, by the end, it's like when they're just squaring off at each other and just spatting insults back and forth, it's like, okay, we're here again. It never got super old for me, even if I do wish they could have found a couple of other ways through dialogue to reinforce that they're playful hatred of each other.
Well, and they got there maybe with the comedic action. And not to spoil the scene, I guess we can talk about that later. So you guys liked this movie a lot. I did too. I'm trying to rip on it very little because I had such a great time. But there were a few things I really did dislike. I thought the music was just atrocious.
Oh man, no. I'm so into it.
I did feel it was a bit long. It almost seemed like there was this huge action scene in a plant, and it ended, and I felt like that was almost the end of the movie before they went to Samoa for another half an hour.
By the runtime, that would have been in a normal film. Yeah.
do you think it was because they didn't? They wanted to get it all done in the first one because who the hell knows if there's going to be another one of these movies? Like I'm sure it's going to make $1 billion. And,
It'll make a lot.
And like they have the talent behind it to make a side franchise out of this stuff, and we'll see if those guys end up back in the proper franchise too. But like I don't know, it seemed like they were packing as much into this movie as possible because why would there be a Hobbs and Shaw 2?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong too, but don't international markets prefer longer runtimes? That just seems to.
Do they?
I
thought everyone prefers shorter runtimes, but
I mean,
that could be
movie
way wrong.
theaters do, but this may be anecdotal, but it feels to me like the huge international hits are these 2.5-hour spectaculars.
Also, like movies in general right now are just long as hell.
Too long.
Right? Like just lots of long ass movies lately.
I mean, God, even Midsummer was long.
It was
and I'm like,
240, right?
why? I mean, it was a kind of a Kubrick pace. So once I was in it, I got it. And that's a total sidebar. But yeah, movies are creeping up in runtime, which I assumed was just because of international markets and some data they got. But that could just be a total assumption on my part.
I don't know. You mentioned Midsummer. It's weird because I will say that is a better crafted film, but I enjoyed this stupid movie so much more than I enjoyed my time at Midsummer. But it's impossible. I mean, they're both films.
They're both a sequence of images that creates the illusion of motion, yes.
I 100% agree with Dan. I enjoyed looking at Midsummer. I did not enjoy watching that movie. I loved looking at this movie and watching this movie.
Interesting.
It never stops to ask you to think about anything. And maybe that's one of my minor gripes is that like the plot is pointless. It really is just to string action set pieces together. There's almost no character development or depth at all. They're kind of one note, start there and end there, which is fine for this kind of movie.
There's a factor of like, atoning for the sins of your past. I think on a very surface level, both Hobbs and Shaw go through that arc where they have to confront some it's largely like, I did this thing in the past that makes me seem like a bad guy to these people. And then through some information I gain or through reconnecting with those people, it turns out I'm actually a good guy. Is basically what happens to both of them.
Yeah.
Spoilers, whatever. I'm trying to be
spoiler.
generic, and also like you said, the arc of these individual characters is minor and cursory.
Is that the character arc of the Rock's character of whatever Shaw, or no, what's his name?
He's Hobbs.
Jake.
Yeah.
Luke.
Lucas. Hobbs.
Luke, like it doesn't matter what his name is.
No, it doesn't. He's the Rock.
Yeah,
Just call him the Rock.
yeah,
Big
that
man.
Rock, because like he was a cop or he was a
DSS
marshal,
agent?
yeah, marshal or something.
Yeah, but he is ostracized from his family back on Samoa.
Yeah,
Why?
the family theme of the Fast and the Furious franchise definitely
It worked in.
hits very hard at the end of this movie. Oh, and actually throughout it a few times.
I mean, that's what it's about.
And I actually liked it a little bit more than, Vin Diesel. Is he asleep? Is he awake?
Yeah.
Telling me about how important family
Pounding
is.
a Corona with the smog-ridden LA skyline in the background, telling
Praying
you about
to the
family.
car gods, man.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that was an interesting thing that, they try and present these guys as so different from one another, but they're very much the same person in slightly different trappings.
I thought that was an intention of the film.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah, I'm being very generous using the word film, but I mean,
This is a movie.
Even down to and again being very generic about it, but there are like this. The movie opens with a mirrored shot of both of them and their morning routine.
Yeah.
Are you getting spoilery?
Yeah,
already?
well, let's
Sorry,
just do that.
Is that a little too much?
No, don't
Okay.
worry about it. I think we all like this movie and would say go see it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you know what you're getting out of this movie, and you know if you're the kind of person that would hate it or like it, and I think anyone should actually be able to sit down and enjoy this, even if you're a big, film, head or whatever, and only like arty stuff. There's so much to enjoy here. But yeah, I think it's time that we can just go free, talk about spoilers, talk about anything. If you're afraid of spoilers, there are a few things to ruin in this movie. There's some really great cameos that we might spoil.
That's true.
But go watch the movie, come back and see what we have to say for the rest of it. But yeah, we can let loose with spoilers. I guess maybe starting with the themes of family and how both of these guys, some of their, I guess, major crime or growth came from distancing themselves from their family and then actually accepting that they need them.
Yeah, it was largely both characters had distanced themselves to protect their family.
Yeah.
And then that action was interpreted as hostility by their family. So yeah, it's not the most complicated human tapestry of emotion.
Well, yeah.
It's enough.
I don't think you need that from this movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, they really try though. Sometimes there's a couple times where like this movie stair steps in a crazy way, right? Like starts off at one level, you start getting a little bit of crazy action, and then they put it on pause for a second so the Rock can turn, and that super melodramatic music can hit, and they can talk about a little bit about family stuff. They hit us with his daughter wanting her
Yeah.
family tree and all this stuff.
I
and it's
actually
just
found that part a little obnoxious.
one
with the
leaf
daughter.
on it. That was
Yeah.
all that was on the tree. All kinds of stuff. And then it doubles it back up again and then puts a pause and like tries to get all serious. It was it's the ridiculousness in that whole thing.
I think at least that was so. I mean, they pull some easy strings there of having a really cute daughter, like be adorable.
I need a mommy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that selling the Deckard Shaw side of it was a little tougher, especially
Yeah.
since his backstory is convoluted based on his introduction to the Fast and Furious series and the fact that he has been the outright villain for a couple of films and then a half villain for another one. So to retcon him back into being a good guy all along was a particular knot to untangle, and they did it to whatever degree of success you can with a film like this.
They try. They never acknowledge the fact that he did straight up kill that dude.
There
Like-
was one line
He did it
towards
to
the
protect
end
his brother.
where where Statham mentions having to make up for things he'd done in the past. And they didn't mention killing the guy or being a bad guy, but he did say, I've got things to make up for.
And the only
maybe
way-
that's why he's there.
The only way it works is that Hobbs never knew or cared about Han. Like those
that's true.
missed each other in the franchise. So
Oh, do they not connect at all?
Hobbs was
Hobbs was there when
That was Brazil. That's
Fast
what I
Five?
remember. I think
So when
he
they're
was
chasing-
the bad
He
guy.
was-
when
was
they're
he in
chasing
five?
down that plane and
That was
and-
7,
and-
6.
Yeah, because that's the last time you see Han, right? Because what's her name dies.
Giselle.
Boy, I can't keep it straight.
Giselle,
honestly.
the Wonder Woman, right? I forget her real name.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Gal Gadot? No,
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot.
Yeah, so she dies in that movie. Han
that
that's
was
when
7.
Han disappears.
Pretty sure that was 7. Yeah, because he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I think I'm going to go to Japan.
Yeah.
And then
you get
gosh.
the flashback to the end of
that
Tokyo
was
Drift.
6. And then 7 had the weird one with like old Tokyo Drift man that was like 3 minutes after the race at the end of Tokyo Drift. It's great because there's no way it's selling, and I think they know that. But so Hobbs was like the bad guy because he's the fire and brimstone sheriff sent to bring in the Fast and Furious crew. Kind of like Paul Walker ends up understanding that they're not so bad after all, and maybe they're the less bad guys. So I do think that if you really want to be a stickler for canon, I think that Hobbs was never in the crew when Han was in it, so Hobbs doesn't have a particular vendetta against Shaw in that way, aside from them kind of, just having personality conflicts.
I did think it was really weird that multiple government agencies are like, these are the 2 guys for the job, and they hate each other, and that's not going to be a problem at all. Like, I know it's stupid, but
they certainly established through some cameos and establishing new characters that there is a fictional layer of government espionage where it's essentially a bunch of 13-year-old boys and girls blowing things up.
It's a bunch of dummies not knowing what they're doing, just kind of bumbling through. Yeah.
So I think as much as the movie doesn't ask you to be self-serious, it also hangs together well enough with its internal consistency. Unless you really want to dive in, and then there are holes.
No, I think you do not dive into the internal consistencies of this series.
Whoa, hold on a minute. Wait, hold on. In the trailer, they are doing their stupid street racing. There's a banner in the back that says Race Wars, which is a joke that I always made.
That's the thing they go to.
It's called Race Wars?
I'm pretty sure that was always called Race Wars.
That rules.
They go to that
Is this in Dubai?
They go to like some desert.
Abu Dhabi, actually.
Well, that's the other thing. It's when like all of the street racers get together in that desert area right there. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's always called that.
Damn. Cool. Anyway.
All right.
Okay.
I am the director of this movie, David Leitch, the guy that did Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, and some part of John Wick.
He's got that's where you think that's where the potential for that cameo happens because of Deadpool.
Yeah. So super spoilers. There are great cameos in this movie, but Ryan Reynolds is The Rock's handler / agency partner or something. And that had to have been because of this guy.
That's
my
crazy.
Guess.
Which makes sense. I feel like it's weird. There's been a couple of swipes at trying to get Ryan Reynolds to be an action lead or at least an action support. And for some reason, it's never panned out. Not until now.
Deadpool?
I mean, Deadpool, sure.
Which he almost plays that character in this movie.
But I'm thinking like Blade Trinity.
Well, he plays that character in his life.
Maybe that's it. But there was so much of that kind of almost homoerotic dialogue of his love for The Rock that seems so much Deadpool to me.
Yeah, I honestly think because if you look way back to like Van Wilder and stuff, like that's just that dude.
Yeah,
he plays that character, that like goofy, very quick-witted man.
I love it.
That's his
whenever
life.
he does it. One last mention before I forget: Vanessa Kirby, the female lead, Shaw's sister, I thought was wonderful.
She was fantastic.
I had to look up what she was from, and I haven't seen anything except Fallout. She was like the White Queen or the Snow Queen or something in Fallout. She's like a gangster that gave them a bunch of guns at some point. I don't know. I barely remember that movie too. But anyway, I thought she was great. She has a kind of an icy, cool, badass demeanor.
Yeah.
I mean, she works super well as a member of that family, right? Of the Shaw family.
Sure. I mean, despite the clear age difference, Statham's like in his 50s.
Yeah.
Like there's no way they were siblings, but whatever. But I thought she was great, and I just didn't want to not mention her.
Yeah, no, that's
blazing through this movie.
Totally fitting that like next to two large men who have led their own films respectively, she comes in and manages to capture the camera with them next to her, and that's
her own
total undertaking. And she sold the vibe super well.
She's got like powerful eyes, I think is what it is.
And
an action star. Like she did serious ass kicking. So.
And she had that like comedic delivery that really fit into the tone of the movie, like that kind of just sarcastic, whatever, just super well casted for sure. And she looked like what's her name's daughter Absolutely.
Yeah, she looked other spoiler for cameo. Helen Mirren was Shaw's mom. They look a lot alike.
Yeah.
Pretty sure
it's
Helen Mirren
wild.
was already established. She was in Fate, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I don't. It's getting hard.
I did not see Fate.
Getting hard to remember. Okay.
How dare you? How dare you not see this entire franchise before you see this movie?
I don't know. Fate is going to be one of those like. It's absurd, but maybe too absurd. And as much as this movie is fun and
The Rock was in jail with Statham. in
he
that.
he was sent in to get him out.
Oh,
sort of.
That was an undercover job.
I think, man, the bits of eight. No. He was framed by Vin.
Oh, of course.
That's right. They were stealing some doohickey at the beginning, and then Vin turns evil, and then The Rock is left caught. Like, oh, how did you bust this out? You must be evil now, Rock. And then so he gets sent to jail.
There's so much greatness in this.
Well,
Something that's hard to capture is something being so stupid but so fun.
what's happening.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
Fate has some great action sequences, but kind of to the point I was going to make, like as much as Hobbs and Shaw is fun and it doesn't take itself too seriously, Fate takes itself really seriously, which is
that's not
something
good.
that it really got on my nerves by the end of it. I mean, I am a sucker for self-serious, hyper-complicated narratives, like Metal Gear Solid, all this dumb stuff that's just ridiculously complicated and no one cares. But Fate to me was like, by the end of it, it was pretty exhausting because it reminded me of Fast and Furious, the fourth one. How it just like was so self-serious, it forgot to have fun sometimes, and Fate was a lot like that.
I want to talk about my favorite line from the movie. There's several wonderful bad lines in this, but at some point, Idris Elba says the words genocide, schminicide.
I've been thinking about
and
that
it just
a lot.
made me burst out loud. I mean, it's just incredible some of the stuff they have him say.
And man, if you wanna like kind of reiterate that this is a 13-year-old's like wet dream, that is 100%. The fact that the villain can say something like that and it doesn't destroy the movie, in fact makes it better, is just awesome. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that can get away with something like that.
The dialogue that's that bad?
Well, it's on purpose. You
Yeah.
know, nobody writes that thinking it's just like the coolest, unironically the coolest thing.
Well, yeah, when you say exactly what you're thinking. At the end when they're trying to beat up Idris for the final time and they're like, if we work together and put aside our differences, we can actually beat him. I know that's not a verbatim line, but it was really close to
so
it.
I mean,
good.
there was so many times during the movie where like, oh, we have to like, she's trying forever trying to get them to work together. Like that theme comes up so often, and they always work together, but they're always doing it at their own way. And at the end, for them to verbally say the words, "If we work together, we can make this happen," or like, we can get this guy. Oh my God, dude! I cracked up so hard.
It was amazing, like bad amazing. And then they like reinforce it in that really sweet fight scene where someone will take a punch so the other one can get a punch in, and it's super slow motion with the rain. It's all of a sudden raining with rain dripping in the background. It's actually really, really cool fight scene that kind of hammers home that we got to work together to beat him.
Yeah,
I thought it was very clever and beautiful.
The concept that was at the end of Matrix Revolutions, I don't know if you remember, but like the slow-mo punches of like Mr. Smith's Play-Doh face that looked awful.
Yeah.
Finally, it's back, and it actually worked this time. So yeah, there would be these incredible, just like human arrangements of people, and like one guy would get hit, and then somebody would hit him, and then it would like do this freeze frame pan of just the scene of water splashing off and people's jaws getting knocked, and it's just beautiful. That's one of those things that it could have taken like an extra second for each shot, just a little bit more to really savor it. But yeah, that's one of those like set pieces and concepts of getting a snapshot of ridiculous like action complexity and letting you kind of take that in as opposed to just blinking right past it.
Yeah, which a lot of the action did. It was some of that super quick cutting, which, while being fun, I don't think was quite as good as something like Atomic Blonde, where the physical fight scenes were just so intense and so brutal, and you saw all of the hits and the bumps that all the actors took while filming it. And for most of this movie, those hand-to-hand fights didn't have that for me, whereas like the car and vehicle action stuff was just incredible.
Well, I feel like the difference between those movies is that's like a well-made action movie based on a comic. This is a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like this is a cartoon. They were just getting from one thing to the other.
Sure.
How much can they fly the camera around a
This is the-
fully CG scene of all this other stuff happening? Like,
I think there were some just like beefeater shots of just like, here's guys fighting, and it's a whole melee. So I kind of get that. I think there were some sequences specifically with Jason Statham because my God, he sells action so well.
Yeah. In this scene specifically.
Yeah, there are some longer shots in that, and then also when he's fighting dudes in his sister's apartment at the beginning. And it reminds me of the like difference between Transporter 2 and Transporter 3, the difference in cinematography there. Of they can have such great choreography, but shortchange it really hard because they just keep cutting the camera. And Statham is like, he's got like a dancer's sentiment when it comes to fighting.
Isn't his background in dance? Like, isn't that where he came
said
from?
He was a b-boy, right?
Yeah, well, Vin was a b-boy for that one shot. Statham has just been an athlete. Like he's done high dive and like a bunch of stuff.
Maybe he was a gymnast?
I could buy that.
Yeah, like because he's just he's got like the mobility and like body confidence to do all this stuff, right? Like,
yeah, to me, Transporter 2 is just the ultimate of that. It has his like physical dynamics, but also the kind of long, steady shots and Corey Yuen's choreography, like perfect pairing. Also, that's another movie that's very self-serious, but also just dumb as hell. I was thinking a lot about Transporter 2 watching Hobbs and Shaw.
I love the Transporter movie.
This is another one of my favorite moments from the movie when The Rock straight up grabs a guy off of a motorcycle. It's just so good.
Well, the best part of that scene is right before, because she's making fun of him for being a big meathead, right?
Because he's jammed in that little car.
Well, like also, the scene before is like, there's nothing subtle about you. You're a giant muscle man. What are you gonna go curl some weights or something? Like that's how she makes fun of him. And then she goes, I think it's time to curl. And then he shoves his hand out the window and picks up a dude, like
jams against a pillar. I also do love at one point in the movie, they got to get from one place to another. And it's like, oh, here's like a fucking jet to jump in.
Yeah, that was... So they gave them like halo suits, which is a high altitude, low oxygen thing. But they jump out like 2,000 feet above the ground. Dumb, like doesn't matter. But they got them in this like ridiculous like Mission Impossible Fallout sort of get up. But no, they just base jump and that's it. So yeah, it was a little weird, but whatever. Yeah. Maybe it's just for the optics of it. Everyone's so up on Fallout that they want to see men in like domed helmets with like LED rope lights on the inside jumping out of things. Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating to kind of dissect some of that stuff, why it's done the way it is. I'm sure there's a million reasons that aren't visible to me. Yeah, so it's so good.
I want to watch it again, actually.
Yeah.
Idris's bike in this movie.
Yeah, the fucking
so
Transformer
fucking cool.
bike.
It's its own character, sort of. It doesn't. I mean, it's a machine, which is like a whole thing with Idris. But yeah, it like morphs and transforms and. There's that amazing shot where he basically like slides on the back of it through some semis. Yeah, it's definitely in the trailer.
I think it just happens right there. Or like the one where he's falling down a building. It comes up. So he's falling down a building. Somehow the motorcycle comes around the backside of him, spins around him, and they spin, and he's on top of it.
Yeah, it's really fucking cool. I want a whole movie of Idris riding around on a bicycle. Honestly.
I mean, if it were to like,
motorcycle.
I kept calling it Kit. Like, he's a Transformer. His motorcycle is Kit, but it doesn't speak. If it spoke, it would be so good.
I bet it could talk. It seems smart enough that it could talk.
Do you think that they had that in there and they had to cut it out because it was just like, okay, this is too much?
I don't think they cut anything from this movie for being too much.
I mean, the motorcycles double jump. Did you remember when they double jump?
Yeah, they like go and somehow just like they have compressed air.
They had compressed air and they double jump off of cars and stuff.
But that's one of those things that I always love it when a ton of work is put into something that comes and goes fairly quickly. Yeah. So the way that the bike like splits in half and rotates and stuff, that's a lot of animation and design work. And it's just in a couple of action scenes. Yeah. Like so cool. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this. We're talking about the bike. This shot where it goes through the bus and the camera wraps around
the wheels
the bus.
are like spinning around so it can land on its wheels.
That's just so cool.
And those are the kinds of shots that I live for. Yeah. The ones that have great concepts, man going through a bus with a cyber bike. Like the fact that they didn't cut around to triple take. They just showed a nice panning shot of it. They had the car like swing in front, so you didn't see them hit the ground. Like there's a couple of cheats to not really sell everything or to cover up some CG, but it's so great. I'll always ask for more of that. So that's why I'm a little disappointed. There were some sequences that I think could have used more camera work like that, but I'm not a director. Maybe there were very good reasons why it wasn't in there.
That is what you're talking about. It's so cool.
Like he's falling. I
thought he was sliding. He fell off the truck.
Okay.
And he was like sliding, and then the bike just like wrapped around him, and he was back on it. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the axles separate and rotate independently. So Christ.
He does look like a transformer.
I wish my bike could do that. It would make it so easy to park. Are you kidding me?
This was
If
ridiculous
it could
too.
just drive to you all the time, it would need
That'd
to
be great
park.
too. Yeah, I could go drinking whenever I want.
The little armored dune buggy was fun.
Summon the drones.
Yeah, summon the drones.
Or is it deploy the drones? I don't
It might have been
remember.
deploy, but
I mean, yeah, and he does like
it's
a.
just one of those things that makes me laugh out loud because it's so fucking dumb.
Yeah,
but
well, he's-
perfect for this tone.
He did a spinning roundhouse, like flying roundhouse with a truck, and took out like 10 other cars.
The some of the Samoa stuff I thought was real heavy on the cheese and the family and the brother Uso. They said Uso 30 times in this movie, I think.
What does that actually translate to? Do you
I'm
think?
guessing it's brother.
I mean, they were saying it to only men. I guess there wasn't a ton of women.
Nope, there was the one mom.
Brother
with the-
or sister,
the ballistic
depending on your
slippers.
gender. Yeah, I love the mom with her slipper that can still beat up a 300-pound muscle man.
Yeah, that
It's
was
a
that was
good
a fun bit.
archetype, I think.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see the bottle cap challenge of the Mexican grandma throwing a slipper at a bottle with Tapatio and like knocking the top off? So good.
Oh boy.
There were a lot of times where they did this like side by side thing, and to me it felt like they were purposely calling out like Snatch. In like the styling of it,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
in the beginning of the movie where they're doing
Yeah.
like the side by side and there's things are zooming in weird ways like that. I wonder if that's like a Statham thing or whatever, or like some kind of weird callback to that classic of a movie.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think it was I think it was well executed. Not quite to the level of like panache that Guy Ritchie can execute of like
Yeah.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. and things like that. He's a lot of like simultaneous action kind of sequences. I think it was appropriate in sort of reinforcing the real like buddy cop vibe of the film of like big man little man, bruiser / stealth guy. I thought the dynamic was reinforced appropriately, and it never felt like it was trying too hard or didn't accomplish what those sequences were meant to accomplish.
I have to mention the second final chase scene when they're trying to take down a helicopter, and all of these hot rods just keep coming out of the Samoan. It's Kauai, but the Samoan jungle one by one, and they each have their own cool hooking mechanism that's different than the last hot rod's cool hooking mechanism. It's just, it became Mad Max for a minute in a wonderful way, I think.
Yeah,
That's the scene that everyone gets to hit their NOS button.
Yeah.
Like,
in order.
Like I mean, like those were like the few things that tied it to Fast and Furious as a franchise. Like this movie, I feel like could have just been some crazy action movie starring these two guys, but they went out of their way to make sure that they actually tied it back into what Fast and Furious is.
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know?
I think that's probably one of the reasons you make a movie like, you probably can't make an original action movie with a $200 million budget unless it's got some sort of IP behind it.
With these people
I
tied
don't think
to it?
so.
Really?
Yeah, it's got to have some IP
think of the
or
last-
some sort of original thing.
Last one. I mean, Hardcore Henry, but it wasn't like a 200 million kind of thing. I mean, Kingsman was a comic book series.
Yeah, there's always an IP behind something. I don't think you can make original films anymore,
I didn't even know Atomic
sadly.
Blonde was based on a comic. That makes sense,
Loosely, I think. I love that movie, and I read that comic and did not like it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a
There's
bummer.
been some stuff out of like not America, like Wolf Warrior is a huge blockbuster in China, and that's just a thing. Like the Yip Man series,
yeah.
but that's loosely based on a historical character. So there's some stuff going on. The Raid.
I also liked Rock had a Captain America moment. Did you notice it when he had to rein in the helicopter?
Oh, yeah.
And grab onto
Does-
the truck with his giant.
That was not nearly as absurd as I thought it was going to be, which is maybe owing to like the. I think maybe there was a version of that scene that was a little more ridiculous that they were like, let's tone it back just a touch.
I don't know if they toned anything down in this movie, dude.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Like I'm saying, every time that you thought the movie was starting to plateau, they took whatever the dumb thing was and turned that knob up as much as they could. And they did
chains
that
with
over
hooks.
and over and over again.
Oh, yeah, Roman Reigns has perfect aim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's been doing it his entire life. I think when you guys talk about this sequence, just right on the axles, yeah. When you talk about this sequence of like the helicopter with a chain of 4 cars dangling over the cliff, like that is escalation on a storyboard
Yeah.
of like one car hooked to a helicopter, it's lifting it off the road, and one car comes out, and then that gets lifted up. Another car comes out, that gets lifted up. a fourth car comes out. And,
No.
and each introductory shot is the dude in the car going, yeah! As he like comes up and hooks up to the giant ant chain. It's
Why
so good.
do you think that The Rock had to change into normal clothes out of his like Hawaiian?
He was like stretching his shirt on as he was getting on back of the
like
car.
everyone
It was
else. Like
very-
Roman Reigns is still wearing his like his skirt thing and shirtless and.
My guess is they shot one thing before the other and then realized, oh, we need to get him the costume change back. Because it was weird that he was just putting his shirt back on.
There was a so I remember like there was a deal with in Captain America. Wasn't there some conversation about him trying to do that shirtless? And they're like, no, you need to wear a shirt. Like that's stupid. And I feel like it would have been such a good trailer shot to get The Rock shirtless with his sweet tats, like fucking ultra flexing to hold a helicopter in.
Maybe
but
the CG's harder when you're trying to do a shirtless man as opposed to a guy
could
wearing a
be.
shirt.
Yeah, like the colors are harder to hit.
I also think that then flows into the final action sequence, which is The Rock in the rain, and I think wet skin would be very hard to
Probably.
CG. Maybe there's shades there. I don't know. I'm spitballing ideas.
So, as my resident Fast and the Furious experts, when did the series become self-aware? Like, when did it stop being just stupid and knew it was stupid?
I mean, theoretically, it always did. It's such a fine line. I think it's more when it tells you, the audience, that it's stupid, and that gets telegraphed in a number of ways that are either subtle or not. I think there are sequences like in Fast 5 when they're fucking flailing a safe around two cars.
Yeah.
That by itself is so absurd that now it's like, okay, this is a dumb fun summer movie.
Okay.
Before that,
What was the fourth one called?
Fast
Was that
and Furious.
Fast and Furious.
that one was self-serious. Like
Yeah.
that was trying to get the canon back on track because they finally had Vin and like the cast back together. So, but there's like a sequence at the end where they're racing through drug tunnels at the Mexican border, except it's all garbage CG. So, yeah, it's not great.
It's serious. It's just a wild thing. This is the 10th best performing franchise of all time.
Which is
what is
absurd.
the? It's just a mystery to me how this stuff is so successful.
It's not
What
to
is
me.
what is the magic?
It's bombast. It's fun, which and I think
Is it like America? Fuck yeah, kind of like explode.
I think there's a level of spectacle that other films haven't quite hit, and I think it takes a large amount of just creativity to even get it on a storyboard, and then an incredible amount of technical skill to execute it properly in film. And then I think on top of that, the Fast and the Furious franchise locked into that locked into like the extended canon idea. While Marvel was building their thing, Fast and Furious was right there too, making movies that paid off previous viewing. So as you watch more and more, you get more and more invested. But now I think they're experimenting with kind of dialing that back because you don't necessarily need the encyclopedic knowledge of Fast and Furious to appreciate this movie.
Which I think is a happy relief, honestly.
Absolutely.
So if this is a new series, are you going to go to Hobbs and Shaw and Shaw?
Absolutely, 100%, without question. Unless the trailer looks concerning.
I mean,
I don't know, Omar. Sorry, I've been talking the whole time.
no.
It's
Like all of these movies, all of the Fast and Furious movies, it kind of doesn't matter. Like I won't watch the trailer anymore because whatever. I want to see the movie.
Honestly, I wish I hadn't seen the trailer in this because I think it did ruin a few moments. Where does this rank in your Fast and the Furious pantheon?
Oh boy, that's tough. So for me, I love the first one a lot. I like 3 a lot, maybe ironically, but also kind of seriously. And then Fast 5 is probably the last one in the main series I thought that had a really good vibe and a good amount of fun. This is in there. So that I would say there's 4 that have a really good vibe and are very fun and have great spectacle and set pieces and all that. And this is, of those,
So this is middle to top half?
there's nothing will ever replace Tokyo Drift, just in terms of sheer cheese.
Yeah, so my list is almost exactly the same as Lawrence's.
really?
Like Tokyo Drift is my favorite of the franchise.
Really?
Yeah. Number 1 is my second favorite because it still hadn't it's before it figured itself out, and it was like so dumb. The dialogue is so dumb,
Well, it's
and
just
it's
a Point
so
Break
serious.
remake.
They're so serious about it. It is so dumb. And then I think this one might be third, honestly, for me.
Yeah, I'd say I enjoyed it much more than Fast 5. So yeah, I think I agree with those rankings myself too.
So one last question. Who was the Etienne voice?
So
The
I feel like
AI
that was,
cyberized, is it? someone we saw in the movie? Is it
Are
a
we just
callback?
gonna? Are we gonna? I'm gonna like. Can I just?
Yeah,
straight up-
we're at the end of our podcast. We've spoiled plenty of this movie.
I'm pretty sure it's Ryan Reynolds.
yeah, I would agree.
That,
I'm
let-
pretty sure it's Ryan Reynolds.
Because someone, was it the AI talked to The Rock, I think, and said, "You don't remember me."
yeah, but when you do, it's going to be a doozy or something like
Yeah.
that. Which is like bizarrely a very playful line for a genocidal AI to deliver, which
true.
kind of bends it towards Ryan Reynolds maybe. I think
Is there a chance it's not a person at all?
It could just be an AI, but then it would be a weird thing to be like, "Don't you remember me, The Rock?"
Oh yeah, all right.
felt like
So-
you keep putting the full article in.
It could be. What was Michelle Rodriguez's character?
Liddy.
She's dead. I'm trying to think
No,
of
she's
dead
back. No,
characters.
she's back. That's
Oh,
back.
She's back. She just has amnesia.
Because like it's the techno cult or whatever, they could have like taken someone's brain or whatever and put it in a machine.
There are notes of like re-education.
Yeah.
Idris Elba's character got shot and then was like rebuilt by machines, so he's got a machine brain. But they also talk about converting The Rock and Jason Statham at some point. So it's like, apparently you can grab someone and sort of indoctrinate them with machine thought. So there is sort of like, again, that supernatural or science fiction element. There's not a whole lot of characters that Hobbs is actually connected with through the movies. I hope it's Han. Like they dug up his fried brain out of the car and for some reason put it in a jar, and now that's the thing for some dumb reason. But whatever.
Yeah, because like when in Fast and Furious or in Tokyo Drift at the end, you're like, oh, maybe he didn't die. Like, because they don't show him, they don't do like he could have flown out of the car. Like what things could have happened, and then in that flashback, he like go up and shoot him at the end or something.
I don't think. I mean, it's like that cinematic thing of they're never going to show somebody's head exploding. And in the same way, Idris Elba falls into water.
I really hope he comes back.
Idris Elba is not the. I feel like he's in that weird middle ground for character or for actors where he's too big to be a repeat like third player in a movie like
It was
this.
Heimdall. How dare you?
Yeah, but
Sorry,
yeah, but he's not
killed him
big enough
off.
to like to be like a reoccurring villain or whatever.
I think kind of owing to the smarm of the series, I think they just left in a lot of open hooks that
Sure.
they don't even know. They're just like, let's just leave in a little writing hook that we can pick up later if we want, or we can just ignore it and that's fine too.
That's probably most likely it. They could cast anyone as that character, but having Ryan Reynolds in the movie at all, which he was probably only filming for a day, maybe two at the most. I just think having him there may be a red herring even.
Yeah,
But maybe
totally.
it's too obvious. But anyway, I think we need to wrap this up.
Sure.
I think we kind of gushed about how fun the action was in this movie. Even if you don't like stupid movies, I think this movie would be a lot of fun. It's perfect summer. It's too hot outside. I'm going to go and get a cold drink and some popcorn and just have mindless fun
And
for
then
a
listen to
couple of
rap
hours.
rock at the credits and I
Sit
love it
through
so
the
much.
credits. There
Oh,
is some
yeah.
stuff in the credits.
There are 3 credit
Was it?
sequences. Well, there's one like right after. There's another one after the first chunk, and then there's one way
One
at
at the very end.
So
You
Yeah,
guys,
fair
same
warning.
thing? Go see this movie?
Yeah, dude. Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely, I think even if you consider yourself to be kind of above dumbass movies, this is a good test. If you watch this and you still don't like it, then yeah, maybe there's nothing in it for you, and you can just safely ignore all dumb movies from here to the end of your life. But if it's hard for me to imagine the person that wouldn't get something out of this film.
Yeah. Go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for the 3rd time, I guess.
I got my tickets on Friday. I'm ready.
Anyway, thanks for coming around to see what we had to say about Hobbs and Shaw. In the comments, let us know what your favorite Fast and the Furious movie is, or what you thought the best action sequence in this movie was, because there's so much greatness. And I think we covered all the best lines, except for the one
There's still some good
where
ones
they
in
told Idris that he only believes and trusts in machines and technology, and they put their faith in human beings.
Yeah, we have heart.
Where do you stand on that line, Lawrence?
I'm in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
There was, it was a real throwaway line, but there was a thing where like Idris was like, "Yeah, we did the projections. Humanity's going to be extinct in 2090," and that was kind of the motivation for the character. And I was like, I'm kind of going that way. We need to do something, but still genocide, schmenocide. So good.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bruce, come up with a what if for the Marvel people. Throw them a bone.
What if Valkyrie had sex with me?
No.
Draw
She
that.
can't because she's LGBT.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh.
What if Hulk became president?
Hey, yeah, there's a good one.
President of Planet
What if
Hulk.
Hulk had sex with me?
You'd be